everyone. My name's Barbara Handysides, and I'm president of the Royal Oak Historical Association. And today, we're visiting with Mr. Dick Varley, who is a longtime resident of the Royal Oak area, and his family goes back to the 1800s. So, Dick, how are you today?
So-so.
So-so, okay.
That's all I can say for day, so-so.
Okay. So, going back on your mother's side of the family, you have relatives that landed in the Royal Oak area around the 1800s, correct?
We have one, yes, he would be 1800s, yes, that's 19, yes, definitely one in the Royal Oak Burial Park. It's in the, as you go in the park, it's to the left, right of the old original road in.
And that was your great-grandfather?
1942. The gotta get the greats died, and he actually lived for a while after leaving the farm in the health center that was there for a while. There was right at Royal Oak. There was a health
Glanford
center.
Avenue.
Yes.
My mom worked in that hospital.
Well, she would know. And he lived there until he died in, I think, in 42, sometime like that.
Yeah. So, and his last name was Cuthbert, correct?
Cuthbert, yes, these are all Cuthberts now, yeah.
And they originally came from England?
And he was, he would have been born in England. Yeah, that's the great, yeah. Yeah, great, yeah, he was born in England. He would have been either Surrey, Kent area, some south of England.
Yeah, and how did he happen to...
The only reason I come up with that is my great-grandfather used to write her, my mother, all the time, and they used to talk about that area.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I believe that's exactly where he started his, his wandering life, sort of,
And why did he decide to come to Canada?
Well, that again, as a young fella, in those days, you see, there's probably no work, whatever is happening in England, anything could have been happening, but there was a chance to build on businesses, farms and all that sort of stuff, you see. So it was a great opportunity for a lot of, and another thing that I found, a lot of the stuff that was done around Royal Oak at that time, I shouldn't say Royal Oak, around our area in Elk Lake, they were the first to put the lights in and telephone get stuff going, you see. They were
pioneers,
seekers of some sort.
Yeah.
And that picture, if you look in the Royal Oak Municipal Hall, you see that big round log that's cut out. That's in the road anyway. Well, that probably, if you got back in the pictures, we had that one being cut with a Wee McGregor. Now, Wee McGregor is a big crosscut saw that had an engine hook to it. You see.
Oh.
So that's how they cut them down. More or less everything goes back to the old fields, but the Cuthberts were there before the old fields.
Really? That's interesting.
It was Giles Road before it became Oldfield Road. You see?
Ah.
So
okay.
my mother always called it Giles Road. So that's sort of putting things together this way.
Yeah, and your great-grandparents actually lived on Bear Hill Road.
Great-grandfather, yes.
Yes, right across from Dan's Market.
Yes, exactly.
Correct. So then coming to your grandparents, now he came up from Chile, is that correct?
No. Well, in the roundabout way he got there, but he originally started in Australia. Australia,
okay.
He started there because I think he went over there as a young fellow, looking for jobs, and how those days they were traveling all over the world, and countries were giving them money to go to certain spots. And we were even on a boat coming from England, and they were giving £20 for any English fellow that would go to Australia.
Oh.
And this is later, way later on, but that's how they were getting the people out. And Australia was really into trying to get the white people over there.
Right.
And that's where I would imagine down south and not near London by any means. You had to probably be on a farm or something. So I imagine with having relatives in Sydney or Australia or somewhere that he decided to hoof it over to, or sail over to Australia. And that's where he met up with this family, or I believe it was a relation family, and married in, and he had the second great-grandfather, you see. And that was the great-great coming over and marrying and ended up with the second great-grandfather.
Now, your grandparents, when they settled,
That was on Bear Hill Road.
no, the great-grandparents were on Bear Hill Road, weren't they? The great-grandparents were on Bear Hill Road.
Oh, yes.
And then your parents,
My parents?
no, your grandparents, they settled on what is now called the Pat Bay Highway, just
No, that's
next
the
to where
great-
the vet
great-
is.
That's the great-great.
Oh, that's the great-great.
Great, yes. Yes, he's really the ones that held everything together in this end for us. Yeah, he was into, but going farther down the line, you see, you have to go, there was some trouble, ended up in Australia where he separated and left the great-grandfather with the couple or family, and he moved to Chile. And that's where he started a business in Chile, in first logging and the nurseries. And then somewhere along the line, they had a, I don't know what you call it, epidemic or something. Anyway, great-grandfather's first family, the first one died. So great-grandfather decided to come to Canada, where the great-great-grandfather had already sort of established.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
that's sort of where the connection comes in. But he came after after the great-great-grandfather. You'd have to get it right down to months damn near where they changed, from
Yeah.
one continent to another.
Right.
And so that's where we started living. Once my dad and mother got together, well, they put a house up on Santa Clara, and that's where we were all born, sister and brother all born in Santa Clara. But the great...
So before you go any further, your dad was not from this area. He came out from Timmins, correct?
No, he originally started in Yorkshire and...
Your dad?
Yes.
Oh.
He started in, the Varley had quite a big cotton mill plant there, very big at one time. And there was 8 children in the family, I think, you see. And I think they called them remittance men, don't they, when they were, so many of the richer families sent their younger ones off to North America or somewhere. Remittance men, yeah, there's been...
Usually remittance is when you collect money from someone.
Well, this anyway, because I think even Norman Yarrow was a remittance man, if you want to go back and follow
Yeah.
that out. But this is where my Uncle Bill, my dad's older brother, came out to Timmins and started a clothing store. And my dad came out and was in the Porcupine Mines in Timmins. And that's, and I think by all pictures in it, he did very well. And I think he probably helped Uncle Bill, we'll call him Uncle Bill, to start his clothing store. He started first in Timmins and then went to London, Ontario, with a clothing store. So, and they had 2 in their family. One of those died of mastoid. Well, I had mastoid too, but I survived it. Their oldest one died of it. It was quite common in those days.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
So your dad came out in like 1922?
So my dad actually came out here to see his, I would have said it would have been his, Jackson was their name. And so it would have been a sister to Jackson's, to one of the Varleys back in, and I don't know which one. Anyway, they settled on Shelburne Street, and that was where my dad got up with my mother, and here we are. Sort of thing.
Here we are, yeah. Getting back to your dad, so he came out in 22, and is that when he went to work for the Department of Highways?
He would have come out pretty, well, what happened when he came out, he started in the mines after being in Ontario, he figured the gold mines were like the coal mines. Well, 2 weeks and it was so bad he quit. So until he found a job, it was more or less cutting trees and, just doing whatever job he could find. He said he used to get 25 cents an hour for working out, using the big old saws, and yeah. Even I learned how to fall trees at about 14,
yeah.
Dynamite trees. So,
yeah.
so we learned quite early on that sort of stuff.
Right. So when your mom and dad got married, they settled out on Santa Clara?
Santa Clara.
Correct. Okay. So does that mean you went to the one-room schoolhouse in Royal Oak?
Yes, we sure did.
You sure did.
We went to that school, and I always remember George Lohr and George Lohr Sr. were the maintenance people for that area. I think it would have been called District 61 because it wasn't 63 then, you see.
No.
It would have been just, and all the stuff for the schools was stuck underneath this little house, all the goodies,
Yeah.
So you used to look out the window and see these guys bringing out soaps and all this sort of stuff, And so we were grade 1, grade 2 in that school.
Right.
And then we moved over to the big school.
Yeah, that would be exciting.
Yeah.
So you have 2 siblings. You have a sister, Clara.
Yes.
And she's the oldest, is she? Clara's the oldest?
Clara's the oldest, then a B. Clara's 31, B 30, 31, 32, and 35 for our ages. There's roughly 2 years.
So your brother's name was George?
George, yes.
Yes. Okay. So there was, here in Victoria, back in the 40s, when the war was going on, a lot of families were very concerned about their children, and they used to send them up island to protect them. And if I'm not mistaken, did you not go up to Black Creek?
Well, we went up to Black Creek just after the war was over. We used to go up there to the Macaulays.
Yeah.
And they were settled on Oyster River then, and that's where we started, and that was Black Creek, yeah.
Yeah.
And before that, there was a little co-op store just before the Black Creek, going a little further towards Courtenay Way. And we used to go up with the Macaulays, and there were 2 brothers that were, one was in the Navy and the other one was in the Army during the war, you see. So they hooked up, first of all, they hooked up down here and had stables and horses that they used to lease out to go around the lake.
Yeah.
All around the lake, they used to have those out. And as a matter of fact, 2 died and one day fell over and they couldn't get them back up again. Horse goes down, it doesn't get back up right.
No.
Anyway, yeah, then Macaulay's decided to go up to Oyster River, and that's where they started the homesteading and all that. And so we as little kids followed them for a whole summer up there.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So some of the other activities that you did when you were living out on Santa Clara, which you were in Boy Scouts with Mr. Goddard?
We went to the Boy Scouts. Dick Goddard ran it, and we for some reason weren't into Boy Scouting as much as going out and down the lake. And Gordy, the oldest son of me, we used to duck out the back so go away, but not as bad as my brother. My brother, he's the one that got caught with a 22 even.
Oh.
bear on Beaver Lake, that's a no-no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So what other activities did you?
Well, was mainly into working to make enough money to buy a car.
Yes.
And so I started off at Rawlinson's, that the property that, what's your daughter's? Mindy, her husband, Macaulay's, yeah. And that was about 2 acres of mowing lawn every Saturday. So that was pushing the lawn for a bit. And then Harold Green is where I spent most of the time through all the, well, as soon as I got out of school and everywhere else. And that was a farm up on Santa Clara.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And,
So some of the people that you hung out with, Harold Green would be one of them, but who were some of the other families that you hung out with as a child?
oh, goodness, Goddard's was one of them, the Polsons. Wasn't too many, Goddard's, Polsons.
Tuckies?
The Tuckies, yes, down there.
Fred Cockett?
And Bantrites was a strange thing with Bantrites. We didn't hook up much until oh yes, we did, about that. We started a baseball team, Black Swan, slow pitch, and then we traveled. But that again was racing time. That was the beginning of the 50s. So before that, not much with the Bantrites, mainly the Goddards and the Smiths. Bill, it wasn't Bill, it was Bert, Jim, they were both older, but Beth and David were roughly our ages, and that's the ones we hung out with. And more or less, it was all down around the Black Swan and that sort of thing, swimming.
That was a great place to be, wasn't it?
Oh, clean water. Could drink right, no problems with water there. It's just that they sort of fooled around too much. Well, our well used to go dry, and my dad used to take a 45 drum down on the old Essex with a trailer and tow up a 45 drum of water. And then, like I was saying, in the early days, the Cuthberts and that had always the smarts. Well, he put a barrel up on the roof and pumped this water up, so we always had running water. You know, in those days, early days.
Yeah.
And then, I think that whole area were probably the first to get water. What do they call the districts then? District 60, District 60 or something like that. Anyway, and they had that whole system up there with running water before any of them. Yeah, they were an adventurous bunch.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, well, all the greens, that were there. Up there, the stand green with the what do you call them when you go see the price of real estate and all that. He was in that, and Ivan was a builder with Spencer, and Harold, of course, had the farm. So if I missed any other brothers, no, I think that's 4 brothers anyway. Oh, one was Athol. He was in Seattle. Never saw much of him, but that piece that looks over the whole of Kildover Bay section there, well, that where Trio's pit was, well, that was part of Athol's property. Then we used to cut grass down in that.
Yeah.
But now it's all houses and everything.
Right, it sure is.
Yeah.
So, so some of the places that you hung out as a teenager would be the Black Swan and Elk Lake, and did you go to the roller rink?
Yes, the Black Swan was the one until we got of age to start driving, of course. And
Yeah.
Then it was downtown or somewhere else.
Right.
But no, and the Grahams, Bill Stuthers built it with, what's the hill? The older hill girl, Bob's older hill. She works for Saanich, I think, as a cashier. Anyway, but the Stuthers started the restaurant there called Black Swan, of course, and then the Grahams bought it out, and that was a hangout for our racing gang and baseball and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the backstop for the baseball team is now right under the red light at Halliburton and the Pat Bay Highway. That used to be our backstop. And up above that was the fruit shed that Sid Van Tryke used to bring us. All of Claremont and parts of Halliburton were all fruit, mainly Logan, you see.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the winery, I would imagine that was the reason, you know.
Could be,
It was
yeah.
so big. And so, yeah, that's where our home place was right now, right under, probably under the head the red light at say, the Pat Bay Highway and Halliburton.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of times about getting cars and stuff. What was your first car?
36 Ford.
And how old were you?
$250, 15 years old then.
Yeah. And you didn't really like school that much, and you really just wanted to become...
A mechanic.
Correct.
Well, I was, what do you call them, dyslexic, very dyslexic. Scared of all girls.
Oh my goodness.
I'd be running the other way. There was, yeah. That was the trouble when you went into school after being outside running around all the time. You'd go sit in your seat while you'd fall asleep. You know, you'd be so damn tired out. And one time, this Connor was his name. He says to this one test we went through, if Dick can get 70% on the test, the rest of you should get 100. You know, because I was always asleep the first. Yeah. It's quite interesting. Like,
yeah.
One time they had a new teacher show up, and of course I had a car. And as soon as I could drive, I had a car. So one day they called me in the office and says, one of the new teachers is out on not Keating, but roughly around Keating and out that way, and he's Mountain View Crossroad, I think it was. Anyway, he says he's just crashed. Would you go pick him up and bring him home? You know, the real friendly bunch, because most of the teachers, you see, were just out of the forces.
Yeah.
You know, some could teach and some, like me, no hope of learning anything, but some of the teachers could really teach, you know,
yeah.
they were very experienced. So I was always a dummy sort of thing, and they just passed me anyway.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they didn't really know about it as much as they do now.
They even give me a book, as, you know, to try and figure, well, what the hell's wrong with this kid? He's too dumb to learn anything. But I could do drafting, I could do math, I could do the woodwork, I could do the steel work. But, you know, when it comes to house, what's house stuff? You know,
yeah.
or English, what's that? You know, that sort of thing. So it was quite a life, because that's when we made the change, you see, from Royal Oak to Mount Newton.
Right.
It's exactly that time we changed from grade 6, was it grade 7? And that's when the earth fell from under me, because each teacher had a different, you know, class here, class 2.
Yeah.
And well, one teacher is wonderful, and the next teacher, I don't understand.
Yeah. So, because you wanted to be a mechanic, you went to work for Mr. Bleethman in 1950.
I started my apprenticeship. I went down there and started my apprenticeship with Ernie Bleethman, yes, yeah.
And you worked for him for...
As a matter of fact, he had a Dutch fellow family that used to live on Wells Road. You remember the name of him? So anyway, he tried for the job, and he didn't want to get his boots dirty, and you know, oil and dirt and everything mixed as a mechanic, you know. So I went down and applied, and I got the job. And,
Good for you.
Pumping gas, and just wanted to be a mechanic, and that worked out wonderful, because he was, you know, for a guy that had a noisy old race car, you know, he let me work in the shop, and, you know, he actually, as much as we probably shouldn't have got away with things, we did get away, you know. We had a good car. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that I had was Freddie Crockett. I don't really run into Freddie at all.
No.
But he worked for the Brentwood garage. Can't think of his name now, Chevron out there. But Freddie, he just knew all about parts, where I was having to guess or hopefully it's right.
Well, seeing as you brought up your race car, I'm going to ask you, you went out to the racetrack in 1952 for the first time?
First time, what happened there was we all had to go to the Ferry Tech. And in those days, of course, I hooked up with Freddie because we were first year apprentices. So we went up there, and that's where we learned, and so did the instructors, as a matter of fact. You know, we were boring this big Ford block out, you know, and we said, "Is that can going to hold all this metal we're taking out?" "Oh, no problems." About 10 minutes later, the old machine was bouncing up and down. We filled it right up, and you know, it was one of those things that was a real lesson for both racing and you know, and Freddie, of course, he had the brains to put it all together and make it go pretty good.
Yeah, so you actually started racing in 1953, correct?
53 I started, 52 we just went round there, and that again was because of Jack Smith, I think it was, and another fellow. They were into racing. That's really when was Passmore Speedway or something. And
Shearing.
it was before Worcester. Anyway, he had this, just go down to Dallas Road and sign in, and so we went down and signed in, and away we went.
And who was your pit crew?
That time was Bob Van Trite, Lamont Brooks, and myself, I guess, Freddie and myself.
Grant?
Yeah. Yeah, Bob was the machinist, yes, sir, and Freddie, he did everything. He was an amazing guy.
When did Grant King join you? Grant King.
Jack King?
Grant.
Grant King, oh, he came quite a bit later. He
Oh.
was on opposite sides because he liked the sprint cars, you see.
Right.
And when we were up racing, well, 20 stock cars would show up and about 5 sprint cars would show up. Well, they'd get 60% of the money coming in, and we'd get 40 for more cars and everything. So we had quite an argument going over. In fact, they disqualified Dave Cooper because he'd been racing for about 12 years before we had. So he had quite an advantage on us in some ways. Anyway, so it worked out. Next year I built a car up, and we did we won 4 main events and 4 trophy dashes first year we run.
Good for you.
You know, and that's, they kept wondering, who's this guy driving? Where'd he come from? You know, he's that diminutive guy from out in the sticks. So they didn't know me, and I didn't know them.
No.
All, you just showed up, unhooked, and went racing.
And who was your sponsor?
For the longest time, no one was for quite a while. You just had to do with whatever you could. That was again Freddie. You know, some old tires off a big old Dawson electric truck here. They're all wore out, but nice and smooth. I said, buy them. You know, and so he did. They were just like slicks. So, you know, all that stuff, say Freddie was on the ball so much that made it much easier to drive.
Yeah.
When you can steer it.
So when you did get a sponsor, who was it?
Pedens. Stayed with Pedens right through, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Hershey's.
Oh, no, that was the way after.
That was after.
No, Pedens.
Weren't you called
as
the
a matter of
Hershey
fact,
peanut
if
butter
you-
car?
Sorry?
Weren't you called the Hershey peanut butter car?
Yeah, well, it was, yes, because, well, this was another thing. We was getting married, so I phoned up Grant one day and I says, you're not using your car. What if I drive it? And he told me to get lost. He says, get lost. Because we were on the other sides, you know, race the first year. Well, we were racing. They were taking all the money, and we were doing all the racing, you know,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So about 3 weeks later, he says, you can drive my car, but you guys got to look after it. I said, swell, I got a good crew. And did I have a good crew, you know? You know, if you get a machinist and a welder and painter and, you know, I had it made. All I had to do was steer it, you know?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because they, I said, they were real good at it. And we were able to build a darn good car. So, you know, when you win four trophy dashes and 4 main events, and first year I ever been in behind the wheel, well, we did fairly well, you
You
see.
did.
Yeah,
You did.
so that worked out good too. But
So you said something about you were going to get married. So where did you meet your wife, Muriel?
ice skating. Yeah, believe it or not.
I thought it was at Gordy Fish's. I thought it was at Gordy Fish's.
Gordy, okay. That wasn't it, not Gordy Fishes. Gordy Fishes, a lot of guys were liking Muriel, quite a few. Anyway, she showed up at the garage one day in Sid Jones's 41 Ford convertible, I think it was, and so while Sid was in selling parts, I was talking to Muriel. So. Goodbye. And then we went down skating, and like Dorothy, I think we had the best skate ever with Dorothy and I. Gosh, I remember that, to skate that arena and really be able to, because she's such a smooth skater, and you know, I sort of clump around. Anyway, we did very well, and I always remember that, and she did too. So that you know, that's pretty good. But Sid wasn't for Muriel. She decided, when are we going to get married?
So what year did you get married?
What year?
What year?
57.
57. And how many children do you have?
2.
And their names?
Karen and Rick.
And Rick. And you have how many grandchildren?
4 grandchildren and 4 great-granddaughters, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So somewhere in the mix there, when you were working for Bleethman, he decided to pack it in, and you and Muriel decided to take a 2-year world tour.
Yes, that took us about 5 years to get up that much to do that trip, yeah. But we were away for a couple of years, yeah.
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 So where did you go to first?
Well, it was down the coast. We left, I think it was one of the July the 1st, or one of the Canadian holidays. We went to Vancouver and got on the boat and started down and around, right around through the Caribbean and over to England. Yeah, and we made quite a few trips over. It was a big ship, the Oriana at that time. It was huge, 42,000 tonner. So. But what was a 2-class ship, and so everybody traveling days didn't have money for the best class, so they were all in the back of the ship and nobody up front. So every so often, a lot of the richer one used to come down and join us in parties. One of those things. But we were allowed to go up on the deck for a tour around. That's when you could look at all these swimming pools. Nobody in them, you know, it just, that's when P&O realized they had to change their ways of selling this, you know, because it's the start of all this that we got going now, you know, as far as travel. And I keep trying to tell the kids that travel. As a matter of fact, I was at the hospital over there at Saanich and Saanich Peninsula, and the girls all had to come around from Camosun. This is when they're in their second year of class, and they says, "Who wants to be a guy for these nurses to try their instruments on?" I said, "Oh, I'll try." So I went there, and they did the arm stuff, but no needle the first time. Anyway, and then the second time they came around again another time, and they says, "Is Zick here?" So I got a second shot. This time I got a shot. They just, yeah, and all of them always said travel.
Yeah.
To travel.
So when you were in England, did you not buy a caravan or something?
Oh,
and then...
did I? We put just about 20,000 miles on it. Not quite 2 years. We saw England from one end to the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, John O'Groats to Land's End, and about 4,000 was on the continent. We started in the Christiansand in in Norway and Sweden through different Stockholm. We're in Stockholm, we're in Copenhagen, and then we crossed into Germany, and that's where we saw the damage the war had caused to a lot of people. Their arms were missing, legs. You know, this is in 1969. You know, just that long, and a lot of people, you know, didn't realize how much damage done to, not only to the buildings. The buildings, in fact, were all damn near new, and the people had their arms, legs, and that's where you notice what the war can do. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
But we got to see. We went all the way through and down into the Riviera and camped along the Riviera, and through the what's the tunnel up there? Through the tunnel down there, and over to where the racetrack is at Monza. Anyway, we
Monaco?
got to see that track where the Formula One cars run.
Right.
Yeah, we had a camp place there. We stayed there for a night. So, and we followed the Riviera all the way around and came out at Marseille, and then we came all the way up the coast there with the van. So we put a lot of miles on that one. I think the distance nearly was equal to crossing Canada from starting in Sweden or Norway and coming right across, about 4,000. That's from living in Somerset, England. Wookey Holes, by the way, is the name of the place that we stayed at. And they had nice caves there and nice RV park, just right for a 23-foot. They had about a little trailer there to live in, 23 foot.
Yeah.
And so it got parked every weekend, and we went out in our little van, and Bluebird Highwayman, and one of the Merriman, I believe, fishermen, Merriman, you remember the fisherman? He used to write in the paper. I think he
yes.
had one just about equal, only his was a Hillman and ours was a Austin Morris one. 30 miles an hour. Even on the Autobahn, 30 miles an hour. Even then, we were following the Volkswagen along, you know, and they're going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and the little Volkswagen in front of us. And the next thing, there's pieces all over. The little Volkswagen blew right apart.
Oh,
right
my
on
goodness.
Yeah, no place for slow cars. But
No.
that's, you know, and the kids used to laugh when I used to get up to 40 or 50, say. But that's quite a big vehicle for all the rest. You know, the cars there were a little lost, and
Yeah.
and the roads weren't very wide with very high hedges, but we learned something very quickly over there. When the Englishmen have a holiday, go the opposite way. Just the first time we went down, we went to, I guess it was Land's End or something. And between the sheep being on the road, because they herds of sheep, they could go anywhere they want to, you know. You get parked for 3 or 4 hours while they, you know, it was, and the hedges you couldn't see anything over, but it you know, it was
An experience.
absolute, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so you came back to Canada in 1970, is that correct?
Yeah, 24th of August, I think it was.
Yeah.
24th of August, something like that. And 1970, yep. And then I went to get a job at Butler's. You know, they had cement trucks and all that sort of stuff, and they didn't need anybody, so I went down to John. John has to be one of the deep fellas, John Chew, you know. They're having breakfast. Come on in, you know. Sat down, and his wife was real nice, you know. And I sat down and talked about the world as far as, you know. And then so I went home. He didn't say anything. I went home, and my brother comes up and he phones up. He says, "How come you're not at work?" I said, "Well, I didn't know I was at work." "Yeah, you're at work."
Well, I just want to back you up for a minute. So, because you mentioned John Chew. So when your dad worked for the Department of Highways, did he not hire John Chew as a young man?
Yes, he did, and that was one thing. John, you know, John could get mad as hell, but this time he had an old sickle mower that was supposed to be used just to cut fields of hay. Well, he hired him to cut along the roads, you see, and of course, hitting rocks and hitting everything can be on the road. You don't have the cutters, you know, they snap off. And John said I was half the time put the thing back together again. And this happened when Bob Lindsay died. He sat down to us, and the funeral went on, and John and I were just talking the whole way about our lives, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
he was a very, very neat guy, I always figured. But we went to school with all the Jews, you see.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we got to.
And then your brother George
Yeah.
went to work for John first, right?
Oh yes, yes. He started off with the trucks, and then went into the excavating, and then I guess you were the one that telling me. John brings him into the offices and says, "These pipelines got to be laid here, and this pipeline's got to be here. Here's all the program for setting all this stuff up." George said, more or less, "I've done none of this." "Well, you're going to learn pretty quick." So we both got on, and we did very well. Yeah, yeah. But he had no patience.
And so you worked for Chew for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
You were consistent, if nothing else. You worked for Blaithman for 18 years
Yeah.
and Chew for 18 years. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so what year did you actually retire?
What year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, you got me there. 87. Yeah, 85 we had that trip into Russia. And 87, yes, it was 2 years after, because of what happened. Oh, I did my Army's water skiing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it literally yanked it clean out. It was just strictly that's another thing that universities should learn a little bit more, because they wrap you up so tight. Your arms are out like this, you know, and when you hit the water and you can't bring your arms in, something's got to break. And that's what happened. I threw the line, I let ski go, and bang, I hit the water, and next thing, this arm was down here. Yeah. And it was just strictly, they're learning about flotation and all that, and they're trying this new stuff out, and didn't work very well.
Yeah.
Not for me, anyway.
Yeah.
And I think Carl probably was the same way, because he said he had shoulder trouble, so a lot got hurt before they realized you got to have something that's got to wiggle. You
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
You know, the real ones now are smooth and totally different idea thinking. Yep.
Yeah. So, so you actually retired then after that, or did you
Well, what I did was
bob around and do
I
stuff?
had went back up to Cuthbert's, where they had this big farm. They had one of the biggest farms for a while on the island here, you see, with Norm. Before they split up, you see, that was a big farm. And so I went up there and said, you know, is there a sort of a job of doing anything? And so I picked a few machines up again, farm machines and commercial machines, and as I say, you can never be a great mechanic, because one's a lot different from the other, and putting things together and how
Right.
they're made and that.
Yeah.
And it was dumbfounding me all that time, and I could work on the lorry, but I didn't know how to do a case Bailey or something, you know.
Yeah.
All the gearing and everything's all different, and setups are different. Mainly it's all because of weights, you see, and where they're, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you lived quite a full life. You
Yes.
got to travel all around the world. You got to be a famous race car driver.
Well, I
You-
would say, yeah, I got a driver.
Oh my gosh, Dick Varley.
No,
I remember.
No way, no. I just had a good crew. I could never
You were
ever
a pretty
say-
good driver.
Well, I was a so-so driver.
No.
No.
It takes a lot to move one of those
take
vehicles.
Guys like Freddie Crockett and a few that can put things together. They
Do you remember the first time we met?
first time
The first time that we met?
we probably met a few times and not knowing it.
Yeah, but the first official time, so Dick's wife, Muriel, and I share an aunt. And when I got engaged to my husband, who was also involved in racing, my aunt said, "Oh, do you know Dick Varley?" And my husband said, "Yeah, I know him really well." And she said, "Well, he's married to my niece." And so he promptly brought me up to your house when you lived up on Elkwood. And we visited you and Muriel because my aunt had said we should do that. And so that was the first time I met you. But I had heard about you long before that.
Oh,
Yeah.
good or bad?
Good, your racing skills. Everybody talked about Dick Varley and what a great
No,
racer
I
he
can
was.
never ever say that it takes them all.
Well, it does.
Oh yeah, there's no way. You sat in cars that, should have gone and you, nothing down there to push. They're so, they built nice, beautiful cars, but painted them up nice, but there's got to be a gas pedal down here somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
It's one of those things that it takes everybody.
yeah.
You can't, the best of drivers can't. I'd say if you give them a rotten old car or a poor car, well, Billy of all things, and I feel kind of ashamed about it some ways, but I don't know. They brought up a car, a midget, and they said, "Do you want to drive this midget?" I said, "Sure." So anyway, I climbs in, and it was built for me to sit in, to drive, and go. The trouble was it didn't have as much power as a couple of other guys, otherwise they would have caught them. But it just showed the difference of when you had the power, you could, you could.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was doing pretty good against him, and Billy had decided to quit racing then. I don't know whether you realize that, but he was standing in the corner watching me go around, and he says, as soon as the race was over, Billy came over, he says, "I'm coming back racing. I saw how much fun you had." And that was Billy's words,
And is that Billy Foster that you're
Billy
talking
Foster,
about?
yeah. Yeah, Billy and I were really good friends,
Yeah.
real good friends.
Yeah.
And some people will say, "Well, I banged him and hit him." The only time I ever car got hit, Billy happened to be driving, and that was Bob Lowe drove into him. And I happened to be sitting in the sand. I got back from the holidays, so I said, "No, let Billy drive it." And anyway, Bob Lowe literally drove in the side of it, but it was a good thing, because Grant was experimental, and he was trying to work shorten rear axles. Of course, you can't shorten an axle without it breaking.
Yeah.
So when it broke, and we had to put in the stock one, no problems. But just as good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things that all you had to do was try and figure out how to keep all your wheels on at one time or on. Half the time they were breaking wheels.
Yeah.
So at that time they had to learn what wheels would stay on, what wouldn't. I don't know whether you watched that mile and Mile and an Eighth, the racetrack. It was in where the DND project.
No, I heard about it.
Yeah. Anyway, well.
I'm much younger than that, George.
Anyway, what happened there? Billy had fast time because the Fords, once they got out going, they were just about as fast as that Jimmy. But anyway, Billy was driving. He trophy dashed, and so I just drove around. And the first time I drove around there, it was so dusty, didn't know where the fence was at the end of it. It had a big wire fence on it. Oh, I better start turning around here. So we got used to running around and saw lids, hoods, everything up in the trees, because it was a horse track. It wasn't ever built for. Anyway, we wound up winning the race, and so we decided to take it to Nanaimo. Well, I don't think I took 5 laps, and the wheels just flew off. just from hardtop, from a dirt track to a hardtop, you know.
Yeah.
And just broke the wheels, all the shocks were hanging. It was lucky to have finished it. But Billy should have won it if his car had hung together.
Yeah.
He had the faster car. But,
Yeah.
but that one was quite an experience on a fairly long track. That was
Yeah.
the longest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you mind telling people how old you are?
Well, I'm 91, and then 91 in December, I'll be 92.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to share with us the story of your family. And I want to thank Dorothy, your sister-in-law,
Yeah,
who has been very instrumental in helping me to get this interview with you.
Well, she's helpful for all of us.
She
really.
is. She's
Yeah.
an awesome lady.
Yes.
And I really appreciate her efforts in
Yeah.
helping us to get this put together.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
For sure. I've got to thank her many times.
Yes.
No, she's looking after me real well.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we come and it's so nice of her to bring my sister. She's a year older.
Yes.
And gosh, you should see her now. She comes, she's glowing just to be able to come and talk to someone around the same age, sort of,
Right.
you know, and gosh, he's just, you used to grab hold of her hand and, you know, when you pull her in the cold, now gosh, it's warmed up, she's just glows. It's just amazing. Just,
That is awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, so you thank Dorothy for that. you see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.